The night air trembled before the sound even registered. "Please help my mummy, they're hurting her." The cry sliced through the silence of the city street like a siren before a storm. It didn't sound rehearsed or polite. It sounded real, trembling, desperate, tearing at the quiet like claws on glass. Across the avenue, neon lights flickered against the mirrored surface of the Vale Tower, a fortress of money and pride. The tower's glass shimmered like 1,000 eyes staring down from the heavens, indifferent to the pain below. A small girl, barefoot, maybe 5 years old, ran across the open parking lot. Her blue dress, once neat, now crumpled and dirty, flapped wildly behind her. Her name was Lila Alvarez. She was sobbing, gasping for air between words, her cheeks streaked with dirt and tears. She stumbled once, scraping her knee, but she didn't stop. Ahead of her, parked by the curb, stood a line of motorcycles. 6 men leaned beside them, their black leather vests glinting faintly beneath the amber glow of a street lamp. Engines hummed softly. The men looked like they belonged to another world, one of speed, steel, and danger. But tonight danger wasn't behind them. It was waiting across the street, in the tower Lila had just escaped. She tried again, voice breaking. "Please, someone help my mama." The biggest man among the group straightened slowly. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his arms covered in dark ink that twisted up his skin like roots. He removed his helmet. Beneath the rough exterior, his eyes were steady, calm but burning with something sharp. His name was Logan Cruz. He looked at the crying child, then at the shining tower behind her. "Kid," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "Where's your mama?" Lila pointed back toward the building, her arm trembling. "Inside, the man in the suit, he's hurting her." The other riders exchanged quick glances, uncertain. People lied, kids got confused, and rich men didn't like strangers showing up at their doors. But Logan didn't hesitate. Something in the girl's tone, pure, terrified, and raw, made him move. He crouched so his eyes met hers. "What's your name?" "Lila," she sobbed. "All right, Lila," he said. "You stay right here, you hear me? We're gonna go find your mama." The others shifted, unease flickering across their faces. One man, older, with a beard streaked gray, spoke quietly. "Logan, you sure about this?" He didn't look away from Lila. "No," he said, "but I'd rather be wrong than regret doing nothing." He stood up, fastened his helmet, and turned toward his bike. The others followed, the low rumble of their engines swelling like a storm breaking open. As they revved toward the high-rise, Lila's sobs echoed faintly in the distance, carried away by the wind and the sound of engines roaring to life. Just minutes earlier, the building behind her had been silent, sterile, and immaculate, the kind of place that smelled like polish and perfume. Inside those walls, Maria Alvarez had been mopping the marble floors of the executive lobby. Her back ached, but she didn't stop. She never did. Her uniform was clean, her hair tied back neatly, her movements precise and practiced. Each stroke of her mop was both an act of obedience and survival. She had been working there for 3 years. 3 years of invisible labor, 3 years of keeping her head down, 3 years of pretending she didn't hear the jokes the rich men made when they thought she didn't understand English. Her daughter Lila had been sitting quietly on the floor nearby, drawing with a dull crayon on an old sheet of paper. Maria glanced at her often, smiling faintly despite the exhaustion. "Look, Mama," Lila said softly. "I drew this building. It's so big." Maria smiled, her voice tender but worn. "It's beautiful, mi amor. Maybe one day you'll live in one just like it." Lila giggled. "And you too, Mama. You won't have to clean anymore." Maria's smile faltered. She looked away, her throat tightening. "Maybe," she whispered. That fragile peace shattered when her phone buzzed. The screen flashed. Ethan Vale. Her chest tightened. She hesitated before answering. "Hello, sir." The voice that answered was cold, impatient. "Maria, I told you the entire tower needs to be spotless. Investors are coming tonight." "Yes, sir," she replied quietly. "I finished the lobby and—" "I didn't ask what you finished," Ethan interrupted. "I said everything. Every floor, every room. Don't make me repeat myself." The line went dead. Maria stood frozen for a moment, the phone heavy in her hand. Then she looked at her daughter. Lila's eyes were wide, sensing the change in the air. "Mama, can we go home now?" Maria forced a tired smile. "Not yet, baby. Just a little longer." Hours passed. The city outside fell asleep, but inside the Vale Tower, Maria kept scrubbing until her knees trembled. The air smelled of bleach and loneliness. It was nearly midnight when the sound of engines filled the private driveway. Not motorcycles, cars, expensive ones, the kind that made a statement before the man inside even opened the door. Ethan Vale stepped out first, his suit crisp, his watch gleaming gold beneath the moonlight. He was followed by 3 men in designer suits, each holding a glass of whiskey, each laughing too loudly. When Ethan saw Maria still working, his face twisted. "What is this?" he barked. "You had all day." She straightened quickly, trying to smile. "I'm sorry, sir, I just finished the East Wing and—" "I said everything," he snapped. "Does this look spotless to you?" It did. The floors shone like mirrors, but she didn't argue. "No, sir," she whispered. "I'll finish right away." Lila peeked from behind a counter, clutching her mother's cleaning rag. Ethan's eyes caught her. "You brought a child here." His tone was sharp, almost mocking. "This is a professional environment, not a daycare. She's quiet, sir. I had no one to watch her tonight." Ethan's friends exchanged smirks. One whispered, "Let it go, man." But Ethan didn't. His pride was bruised, and pride was the only thing he worshipped. He stepped closer, voice rising. "You think you can embarrass me in my own building?" Maria backed up slightly, hands trembling. "Please, Mr. Vale, I didn't mean—" The mop slipped from her hands as he struck it away, the handle clattering across the marble. "I don't want your excuses." Lila's small voice broke through the tension. "Stop yelling at my mama." Every head turned. The little girl's face was red, her fists clenched. Ethan sneered. "Get that brat out of here." Maria stepped in front of her daughter. "She's just a child, sir." "Then maybe you should act like an employee instead of a victim," he spat. For a moment, the room was filled only with the faint hum of air conditioning and Maria's unsteady breathing. Then Ethan shoved her shoulder. It wasn't a hard push, but it carried years of humiliation behind it. Maria stumbled, gasped, caught herself against the wall. Lila screamed, "Stop hurting her!" Ethan turned, furious, but the child was already running, barefoot, terrified, through the lobby doors and into the night. He didn't chase her. He didn't care. But that scream, raw, echoing down the marble hall, would change everything. Outside, the city slept. The moon hung above the tower, cold and still, as the sound of motorcycles grew nearer. And with that sound came something Ethan Vale had never faced before. Not money, not power, but justice. Maria Alvarez had always believed that silence was safer than truth. For years, she'd learned to blend into the background of other people's lives, scrubbing away their messes, lowering her eyes when they spoke, thanking them even when they forgot her name. In the Vale Tower, she was a ghost with a mop, but tonight, the ghost was trembling. Inside the marble lobby, Maria leaned against the wall, breath shallow, tears slipping quietly down her cheek. The echo of Ethan Vale's voice still rang in her head. Somewhere outside, her daughter's cries were fading into the city noise. Panic tightened around her chest. "Lila," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Mi amor, where are you?" Her knees felt weak. She took a step toward the glass doors, but Ethan's hand caught her arm. "Don't move," he said sharply. His breath smelled of whiskey and arrogance. "You're not leaving until we talk." Maria turned, eyes wide. "Please, my daughter, she ran outside." Ethan's expression hardened. "That's your problem, not mine. You left this place a mess. You think I'm paying you to run after brats in the middle of the night." She tried to pull free. "Mr. Vale, she's only 5 years old." He tightened his grip, the veins in his hand standing out. "You people never learn," he muttered. Her fear turned to something else, something she hadn't felt in years, anger. She yanked her arm back. "I'm not your property." For a second, he seemed surprised. Then his face darkened. "Watch your mouth." The sound of engines outside grew louder, faint but distinct, like thunder rolling toward them. Ethan frowned. "What the hell is that?" Maria didn't answer. Her mind was still on Lila, somewhere out there in the dark. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice to a hiss. "You don't talk to me that way again, do you understand?" Maria's heart pounded. "All I want is to find my daughter," she said quietly. He leaned in so close she could smell the alcohol. "And I want you to remember who runs this place." Before she could respond, a sound shattered the tension, the deep growl of motorcycles echoing against the marble walls as the automatic doors slid open. Ethan turned, confused. "What?" 6 riders walked in, their boots striking the floor with measured force. The leader removed his helmet first. Logan Cruz. The security guard at the desk jumped to his feet. "Sir, they can't be here." "Relax," Logan said, voice low and calm. "We're just here for a woman named Maria Alvarez." Ethan laughed, short and sharp. "This is private property. You have 5 seconds to turn around before I call the police." Logan's gaze swept the room and stopped on Maria. "You all right, ma'am?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She nodded faintly. Ethan stepped in front of her. "She's fine," he said, each word deliberate. "Now leave." Logan's tone stayed even. "That's not what it looks like." Ethan's friends shifted uncomfortably, sensing the change in atmosphere. The security guard reached for his radio. Logan raised one hand slightly. "No one's here to fight, but that little girl out there, she said someone was hurting her mum. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" Ethan smirked. "You're seriously taking orders from a child?" Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. "I'm listening to my conscience." Maria found her voice again, quiet but trembling. "They're telling the truth. My daughter came for help." Ethan turned to her, disbelief flashing across his face. "You brought these people here." "I didn't," she said. "She did, because you scared her." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Logan stepped forward, closing the distance between them. His tone dropped. "Why don't we all calm down before something happens that can't be undone?" Ethan's smirk vanished. "Get out." Logan didn't move. His companions watched, ready. Maria could feel the tension building, the air thick with danger. She reached out, voice shaking. "Please, just let me take my daughter and go. That's all I want." Ethan turned sharply toward her. "You're not leaving." Logan's expression changed. "She is," he said. Ethan squared his shoulders. "You think you can walk into my building and tell me what to do?" Logan's voice stayed calm. "No, I'm telling you what's right." The standoff lasted seconds, but it felt endless. Then Ethan moved first, fast, shoving Maria aside to grab Logan by the vest. "You don't belong here," he said flatly. Logan's response was quiet, almost gentle. "Neither does fear." He caught Ethan's wrist, firm but restrained, and pushed him back half a step. The motion was controlled, not violent, but enough to make Ethan stumble. "Touch her again," Logan said, "and I'll forget how to be polite." The other riders spread out slightly, blocking the exits without a word. Ethan's friends stood frozen, caught between outrage and uncertainty. Maria backed away slowly, hands trembling, her eyes darting toward the doors. Her thoughts were only of Lila. "Please," she said softly. "I just want my daughter." Logan looked at her and nodded once. "We'll find her. You're safe now." Ethan straightened his jacket, trying to regain control. "You're all making a big mistake," he said through clenched teeth. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Logan met his gaze. A man who forgot what that's supposed to mean. The silence that followed was thick, electric. Then, from outside, a faint voice called, "Mama!" Maria turned sharply. Lila stood in the doorway, clutching the hem of her torn dress. Her eyes were red but shining. Maria ran to her, falling to her knees, arms wrapping around her daughter with a sob that shook her entire body. "Thank God," she whispered. "Thank God." Lila clung to her, crying into her shoulder. "He was hurting you, Mama. I was so scared." Maria pulled back just enough to cup her daughter's face. You were so brave, mi amor, so brave. Ethan watched them, face blank, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his eyes. Logan turned to his men. We're done here. But Ethan wasn't finished. You're not walking out with her like this, he said, his tone hardening again. She works for me. Logan stopped, then looked back slowly. Not anymore. Ethan stepped forward, finger pointing. You can't just take what's mine. Logan's voice cut through the air. She's not yours. The two men stared at each other, the hum of the city filling the silence. Maria stood, holding Lila's hand, and for the first time in years, she didn't lower her gaze. Without another word, Logan guided them toward the door. The other riders followed, the heavy doors opening once more, to the sound of engines idling outside. Behind them, Ethan Vale stood in the marble lobby, surrounded by wealth that suddenly felt hollow. Outside, the air was cool and alive. Maria's legs almost gave out as they reached the curb. Logan handed her a small water bottle from his bike. Drink this, he said. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come. Logan shook his head. You don't owe me thanks, you owe yourself peace. Lila tugged at her mother's sleeve. Can we go home now? Maria looked down at her and nodded. Yes, baby, we're going home. As they walked toward the bikes, the sound of sirens began to rise in the distance. Logan looked toward the tower, then back at Maria. You should tell them everything when they arrive, he said quietly. Don't be afraid. Maria's voice trembled. Men like him, they always win. Logan looked up at the glittering tower, its mirrored surface reflecting the red and blue lights approaching fast. Not tonight, he said. He turned the key in his ignition, and the engine growled to life. The other riders followed. As the motorcycles pulled away from the tower, Maria glanced back one last time. Inside that cold building, she had left her fear behind. And though she didn't know it yet, this was the night the invisible woman began to be seen. The flashing red and blue lights painted the night in short, trembling bursts. Maria held Lila close as two police cars stopped in front of the tower. The sound of the motorcycles faded, swallowed by the hum of the city. Logan Cruz and his riders had vanished down the avenue, leaving behind only the scent of exhaust and a strange, heavy calm. An officer approached, flashlight cutting through the dark. Ma'am, are you the one who called? He asked. Maria shook her head, voice unsteady. No, sir, my daughter, she ran for help. The officer crouched slightly to meet Lila's eyes. That was very brave of you, sweetheart, he said gently. Can you tell me what happened? Lila gripped her mother's arm and whispered, The man in the suit hurt her. The officer stood, nodding toward his partner. We'll take a statement inside. Maria hesitated. Do I have to go back in there? It's just procedure, he said. You'll be safe. We'll be there the whole time. She looked up at the tower's glass facade. It no longer shimmered with beauty. It looked like a cage. Still, she nodded. Okay. Inside, Ethan Vale stood at the far end of the lobby, pacing. His face was pale, jaw locked tight. When the officers entered with Maria and Lila, he straightened his jacket, already rehearsing his charm. Officers, he said smoothly, I'm glad you're here. There's been some kind of misunderstanding. Maria flinched at the sound of his voice. One of the policemen raised an eyebrow. That's so. We got a call about an assault. Ethan gave a short laugh. Assault? Look around. Nothing's broken. No one's hurt. This woman works for me. She must have overreacted. Maria spoke before she could lose her nerve. He grabbed me, she said, voice shaking. He yelled at me. My daughter saw it. Ethan turned toward her slowly. You're saying I assaulted you? You pushed me, she said quietly. He spread his hands, feigning patience. If I touched you, it was to get your attention. You were leaving your station in the middle of your shift. That's not true, Maria said. You were angry. He cut her off sharply. I raised my voice. That's all. Don't twist this. The officers exchanged looks. The younger one scribbled something in his notebook. Mr. Vale, we'll need both of your statements, he said. Separately. Ethan sighed dramatically. Of course, but can we at least move this away from the lobby? I have business to attend to." Maria's hands trembled. Lila hid behind her, clinging to the hem of her uniform. The girl's small voice broke through the silence. "He pushed her, I saw it." Ethan froze for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled at the officers, the expression thin and brittle. "Children imagine things." The older officer's tone hardened. "That's enough. You can explain inside." Ethan nodded stiffly and walked toward the elevator, his expensive shoes tapping against the marble floor. Maria followed reluctantly with the other officer, still clutching Lila's hand. In the elevator, the mirrored walls reflected a woman she barely recognized. Her face was swollen from crying, hair disheveled, eyes hollow. But there was something new there, too. Something that hadn't been there before. Defiance. Ethan glanced sideways at her reflection. "You really want to do this?" he said under his breath. "You think anyone's going to believe a cleaning lady over me?" Maria didn't look at him. "I think the truth believes me," she said softly. He laughed once, short and humorless. "You're making a mistake you can't undo." The elevator doors opened onto the top floor. The office was vast, the city stretching out below like a sea of light. Ethan walked to his desk and poured himself a drink. "So you know what your problem is," he said, swirling the glass. "You think you're different from the others who work for me. You think you deserve respect." Maria stood near the door, still holding Lila close. "Everyone deserves respect." Ethan took a slow sip and set the glass down with a soft click. "That's not how the world works." "The world isn't yours," she said. He smiled faintly. "It might as well be." The officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Vale, that'll be enough. Please take a seat." Ethan complied, but his eyes never left Maria. The glare in them was a warning, a silent promise that this wasn't over. Maria sat across from him. Her heart raced, but she met his gaze. For years, she had lowered her eyes for men like him. Tonight, she refused. When the questioning ended, the officers asked her to wait outside. She stepped into the corridor, the city lights flickering beyond the glass. Lila sat on a bench, her legs swinging. "Mama," she said softly, "are we in trouble?" Maria knelt in front of her. "No, baby, he is." Lila looked uncertain. "But he's rich." Maria smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. "Rich doesn't mean right." The elevator dinged again. Down below, through the glass, Maria could see the flicker of headlights. The motorcycles had returned. Logan Cruz was leaning against his bike, arms crossed, watching the building. Lila spotted him too and whispered, "That's the man who helped me." Maria nodded. "Yes, that's the man who listened." The door behind them opened. The younger officer stepped out, holding a clipboard. "Ma'am, you can go home for now," he said. "We'll contact you tomorrow if we need more information." Maria hesitated. "Is he in trouble?" "Not yet," the officer said, "but don't worry. We'll make sure you get home safe." As they rode down in the elevator, the silence between Maria and her daughter felt both fragile and full. When the doors opened, Logan was still there, waiting. "You all right?" he asked. Maria nodded. "For now." He studied her face. "You sure you want to go back home tonight?" "I have to," she said. "It's all I can afford." Logan looked at the small girl hiding behind her mother's leg. "She shouldn't see you scared," he said quietly. Maria met his eyes. "Then I'll pretend I'm not." He smiled faintly. "That's how courage usually starts." He opened the door of his truck and gestured toward it. "Come on, I'll take you home." Maria hesitated, glancing at the officers still talking by their cars. Then she nodded. "Thank you." The drive was quiet at first. The city rolled past in streaks of gold and grey. Lila fell asleep in the back seat, her small hand clutching the edge of her mother's coat. After a few minutes, Logan spoke. "Men like him think they own the world," he said. "But it only takes one voice to shake it." Maria looked out the window. "I'm not sure my voice is that strong." He shook his head. "It doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be true." They stopped in front of a small building with peeling paint and a single flickering light above the door. Maria carried Lila out carefully. She turned to Logan. "You didn't have to do any of this," he said. "Maybe not, but somebody had to." She smiled faintly. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't," he said. "Just take care of her." He started the engine again, the motorcycle's low growl echoing down the empty street. Maria watched until he disappeared into the dark. Then she looked down at her sleeping daughter and whispered, "We're safe now." But as she carried Lila inside, the weight of the night settled in her chest. Safe was a fragile word. She knew Ethan Vale wouldn't let humiliation sit quietly. And somewhere high above the city, he poured another drink and stared out at the skyline, already planning how to reclaim what he believed was his. The morning after the incident at Vale Tower was grey and still. A heavy mist hung over the city, swallowing sound and colour. Maria Alvarez stood by her small kitchen window, watching the traffic far below. The coffee on the stove had gone cold, but she hadn't noticed. Lila sat at the table, legs dangling, eating dry cereal from a chipped bowl. "Mama," she said softly, "are we going back to your work today?" Maria turned from the window. "No, baby, not today." "Will the man be there again?" Lila asked. Maria took a slow breath. "I don't think we'll ever see him again." But even as she said it, a shiver ran through her. Somewhere inside, she knew Ethan Vale wasn't finished. When the knock came at the door, she jumped. Her first thought was that it was him. Her second was that she didn't have anywhere else to run. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Ethan Vale. It was Logan Cruz. He stood in the hallway, helmet under his arm, rain still clinging to his jacket. "Morning," he said quietly. Relief crossed her face. "Logan, you shouldn't have come here." "Maybe not," he said, "but I figured you could use some help." She stepped aside, letting him in. Lila smiled shyly when she saw him. "Hi," she said. Logan smiled back. "Hey, little one. You doing okay?" She nodded. "Mama says we're safe now." He looked at Maria, his expression careful. "You believe that?" Maria hesitated. "I want to." Logan set his helmet on the counter. "Vale's a powerful man. People like him don't let things go. You should be ready for that." Maria crossed her arms, her voice quiet but steady. "I can't live in fear forever." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to be smart." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded newspaper. The front page showed a photo of police cars outside Vale Tower. The headline read, "CEO questioned after alleged assault on employee." Maria stared at the image. They printed it. "Looks like someone talked," he said. "Word travels fast when the rich are involved." Her throat tightened. "He'll know it was me." Logan shook his head. "He'll assume it was anyone who saw him lose control. You're not the only one he's hurt. Just the first who didn't stay quiet." Lila looked between them. "Mama, are we in trouble?" Maria knelt beside her. "No, baby. We're telling the truth, and the truth can't get us in trouble." Logan watched them for a moment before saying, "That's what people like to believe, but truth has a cost." Maria stood, meeting his eyes. "Then I'll pay it." He nodded once, respect flashing across his face. "If you need anything, protection, help, me and my crew, we're around." "I can't ask you for that," she said. "You're not asking," he replied. "We're offering." Before she could answer, the door buzzer rang. Maria froze. Logan tilted his head. "Expecting someone?" She shook her head. He moved quietly to the door, glanced through the peephole and cursed under his breath. "It's him." Maria's heart stopped. "Ethan Vale?" Logan nodded. "And he's not alone." Outside, two men in suits stood beside Ethan, who looked immaculate again. Hair slicked back, smile polished, eyes cold. "Stay back," Logan said. But Ethan's voice carried easily through the thin door. "Maria, I know you're in there. We need to talk." She swallowed hard. "I don't want to talk to you." He chuckled softly. "How you misunderstand? You don't have a choice." Logan opened the door just enough to step into the hallway. "She said she's not interested," he said flatly. Ethan's gaze shifted to him. "Ah, the motorcycle hero. You should be careful where you stick your nose. I'll risk it, Logan said. Ethan smiled without warmth. This is between employer and employee. Step aside. She doesn't work for you anymore, Logan said. Ethan's tone sharpened. She does until I say otherwise. From inside the apartment, Maria called out, You can't threaten me. Ethan's smile widened. I'm not threatening you, Maria. I'm offering you a chance to fix this before it gets ugly. Logan stepped closer. You should leave. Ethan's men moved subtly, closing in. The hallway air thickened, heavy with the tension of men who thought they owned the world. Then a voice cut through the silence. Lila had stepped into view, holding onto her mother's skirt. Leave my mama alone, she said. Ethan's smile faltered for the first time. You should keep that child quiet, he said coldly. Logan's patience broke. That's enough, he said, pushing the door wide open. You want to play power games? Do it somewhere else. Ethan's jaw tightened. You think you can protect her forever? Logan met his stare without blinking. Just long enough for her to remember what freedom feels like. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Ethan turned abruptly, signaling to his men. This isn't over, he said over his shoulder. As they disappeared down the hall, Logan exhaled slowly. You need to pack a bag, he said. Now. Maria looked shaken. Where will we go? Someplace he won't look, he said. A friend of mine owns a garage outside the city. You can stay there for a while. Lila tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mama, can we take my drawing? Maria smiled weakly. Of course, baby. Minutes later, they were in Logan's truck again, heading toward the edge of the city. The rain had stopped, but the streets glistened slick and silver under the streetlights. Lila leaned against her mother, half asleep. Logan drove in silence, eyes fixed on the road. After a while, Maria spoke softly. You didn't have to do that, he said. Didn't I? He'll come after you too, she said. He shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time a rich man didn't like me. She looked at him. Why are you helping us? He kept his eyes on the road. Because someone helped my mother once. I was Lila's age when a man tried to take everything from us. She fought back alone. No one listened. I swore I'd never stay silent again. Maria looked down, her throat tightening. Your mother must have been strong. She was, he said, but she didn't survive it. The truck grew quiet again, the hum of the engine the only sound. When they reached the outskirts, the city lights faded behind them. Logan turned down a narrow road that led to an old mechanic's garage. A single bulb glowed above the entrance, casting long shadows. Inside, two more riders were waiting. One, a woman with short hair and a scar across her jaw, looked up from her toolbox. This her? She asked. Logan nodded. Maria and her daughter. The woman wiped her hands and offered a small smile. Name's Rhea. You're safe here. Maria's eyes filled with tears she didn't bother to hide. Thank you, she said. Rhea shrugged. Don't thank us yet. You'll be sleeping on cots and eating canned beans. Logan grinned faintly. She's joking, mostly. They led Maria and Lila to a small room in the back, where an old couch and a heater waited. It wasn't much, but it was warm and quiet. Lila curled up with her drawing and fell asleep almost instantly. Maria turned to Logan. I don't know how to repay you. He shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Just promise me one thing. She looked at him. What? When the time comes, don't stay quiet again, he said. Speak, no matter who's listening. She nodded slowly. I will. He lingered at the doorway for a moment. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to fight back. When he left, Maria sat beside her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of engines, like distant thunder promising to return. For the first time in her life, Maria felt something stronger than fear. She felt the beginning of change. Morning came with the sound of rain tapping lightly against the tin roof of the old garage. Maria woke to the smell of coffee and the faint hum of music coming from the front room. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memory returned. The tower, the shouting, the escape. Lila was still asleep beside her, her small hand curled under her chin. Maria stood quietly, wrapped her worn shawl around her shoulders, and stepped outside the room. Logan Cruz was at a workbench, tightening bolts on a motorcycle. He looked up when he saw her. "Morning," he said, wiping his hands with a rag. "Morning," she replied. "You've been up early." He shrugged. "Didn't sleep much. Thought better to keep busy." Maria's gaze drifted over the garage. Tools hung in neat rows and the smell of oil mixed with the sharp scent of rain. "Thank you again," she said softly. "For all this?" He nodded. "You don't have to thank me. You needed a place and I had one." Ria entered from the side door carrying a tray of toast and eggs. "Breakfast," she announced. "Don't expect hotel service. You get what I burn." Maria smiled faintly. "It's perfect, really." Ria set the tray down and looked at Logan. "Any news?" "Not yet," he said, "but Vale won't let it go. He's too proud." Ria snorted. "Men like him always are. Think they own the air everyone breathes." Maria frowned slightly. "What will he do?" Logan's tone was calm but serious. "He'll start small. Lawyers, threats, maybe someone watching your place. He wants to scare you back into silence." Maria looked down. "He already has power. I have nothing." Logan said, "You've got the truth. That's worth something." She looked at him and said quietly, "The truth didn't save me last night." He met her eyes. "No, but it brought you here. Sometimes that's the start." Ria poured coffee into a metal cup and slid it across the table. "He's right. You're safer now, but you can't hide forever." "I know," Maria said. "I just need time to think." Before Logan could answer, the garage door rattled. A young man hurried in, soaked from the rain. "Logan," he called, "you need to see this." The man held up his phone. On the screen, a video played, grainy footage from a security camera. It showed the lobby of Vale Tower, Ethan Vale shouting, Maria stumbling back, and a little girl's voice screaming from somewhere off-screen. Maria froze. "Where did you get that?" "Someone leaked it online," the man said. "It's everywhere, news channels, social media, you name it." Logan leaned closer. "That means he's losing control of the story," he said. "He'll get desperate." Maria's hands trembled. "They'll know it's me in the video." "They already did," Ria said. "But now the world does too. That's power he can't buy." Logan turned to her. "This could protect you. He can't bury it anymore." But Maria wasn't convinced. Or it could make him angrier. "Maybe," Logan said. "But it's too late for hiding. The fight's out in the open now." Before they could say more, the sound of an engine roared outside. Then another. Tires screeched against wet pavement. Ria's expression hardened. "We've got company." Logan moved to the window. 3 black SUVs were parked in front of the garage. Men in suits stepped out, umbrellas snapping open. At their center was Ethan Vale. Maria's breath caught. "He found us." Logan turned to her. "Take Lila to the back room and stay there." She shook her head. "I can't let you face him alone." He said firmly, "I'm not asking. I'm telling." Maria hesitated, then nodded and hurried toward the back, her heart pounding. Lila was already awake, frightened by the noise. "Mama, what's happening?" "It's just the rain, baby," Maria said softly. "Stay here with me." Outside, the door to the garage swung open. Ethan stepped in, rainwater dripping from his coat. His eyes swept the room and stopped on Logan. "You really think you can hide her from me?" he said. Logan didn't flinch. "I'm not hiding anyone. She came here for safety." Ethan laughed. "Safety? You think a few bikes and a pile of rust can protect her from me?" Ria crossed her arms. "Seems like it's working so far." He ignored her. "You're making a mistake," he said to Logan. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Logan replied calmly, "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, a man who can't stand that someone said no to him." Ethan's face tightened. "You don't belong in this conversation." "That's where you're wrong," Logan said. "You made it everyone's business the moment you hurt her." Ethan took a step closer. "You have no idea how much I can destroy you." Logan's tone stayed quiet, almost bored. "Then you'll have to get in line. Plenty have tried." The tension between them was a wire ready to snap. Outside, thunder rolled. Ethan's men shifted uneasily. One of them said, "Sir, maybe we should go." But Ethan didn't move. "I'm not leaving until she comes out here." Maria's voice came from behind the doorway. "I'm here." She stepped into view, holding Lila's hand. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. Ethan's tone softened artificially. "Maria, listen to me. This has all gone too far. You're upset, I understand, but you don't want to ruin both our lives over a misunderstanding." "You hit me," she said quietly. "I lost my temper," he replied. "That doesn't make me a monster." Maria said, "It does when you think it's your right." Ethan exhaled sharply. "I gave you a job, a paycheck, a way to feed your child. This is how you repay me?" "You didn't give me anything," she said. "I earned it." His voice dropped lower. "You don't know how powerful I am, Maria. That video won't save you. It'll disappear like it never existed." Logan spoke before she could respond. "Then we'll make another one," he said. "And another. You can't erase everything." Ethan turned his glare on him. "You're just a thug on a bike. Stay out of this." Logan said flatly, "You don't belong here." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Logan said, "but you'll regret more when the police arrive." At that, one of the SUVs honked twice. Blue lights appeared down the street. Ethan's men tensed. He shot Maria one last look, something between fury and disbelief, then turned to leave. "This isn't finished," he said. Logan watched as the SUVs disappeared into the rain. The garage was silent for a moment, except for the steady drip of water from the roof. Rhea broke the silence. "Well," she said, "that could have gone worse." Logan looked at Maria. "You all right?" She nodded slowly. "He won't stop." "He will," Logan said, "when he realizes fear doesn't work anymore." Maria looked down at Lila, who was clutching her hand tightly. "He's already lost something," she said quietly. "He's lost control." Rhea gave a small, approving smile. "Now you're starting to sound like us." Logan met Maria's gaze. "This is just the beginning. You ready for what comes next?" Maria took a deep breath. "I think I am." Outside, the rain began to ease. The clouds thinned, and a streak of pale light broke across the sky. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The war between their worlds had begun, not with violence, but with a woman who refused to stay invisible. The morning after the confrontation brought a strange kind of calm. The storm had passed, leaving puddles on the cracked pavement outside the garage. Inside, Maria sat at a small wooden table with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. The silence felt heavy, like the pause between lightning and thunder. Lila was coloring quietly in the corner, her small hands smudged with crayon. Every so often, she would glance up at her mother and smile, trying to make her forget. Rhea walked in from the workshop, wiping grease from her hands. "News is everywhere," she said. "Your story's spreading faster than wildfire. Reporters are parked outside the tower. Cops are knocking on Vale's door." Maria's eyes flicked up. "So he's being questioned." "Questioned, suspended, and cornered," Rhea said. "He's not a man who takes humiliation well." Logan entered from the back, his jacket still damp from the rain. "He's fighting it," he said. "His lawyers are spinning everything, claiming the video was edited, that you provoked him." Maria looked down at her cup. "They'll believe him. They always do." Logan sat across from her. "Not everyone," he said. "People are watching now. You started something he can't control." She sighed. "I didn't want to start anything, I just wanted to survive." He leaned back in his chair. "Sometimes survival looks a lot like rebellion." Rhea poured herself coffee and said, "He's not going to stay quiet. The more cornered he feels, the more dangerous he gets." Maria nodded slowly. "Then I should tell the police everything, every threat, every word." "That's what I was hoping you'd say," Logan replied. He reached into his pocket and placed a small card on the table. "Detective Alvarez. She's handling the case. She's good, tough, fair. She'll listen." Maria picked up the card. "Alvarez?" "No relation," Logan said with a faint smile. Rhea said, "We'll go with you. You shouldn't walk in there alone." Maria shook her head. No, I need to do this by myself. For once I want to be the one standing. Logan studied her face, then nodded. All right. But you call if anything feels off. That afternoon, Maria took a bus downtown. The city looked different now, louder, heavier, like everyone had heard the story and wasn't sure what to believe. She kept her head down, clutching her purse, feeling every stare. At the precinct, she found Detective Alvarez waiting. The detective was tall, with sharp eyes and a steady tone. "Maria Alvarez?" she asked. "Yes," Maria said quietly. "Come with me. Let's talk." Inside the small office, the detective closed the door and gestured toward a chair. "You've had quite a week." Maria sat carefully. "It feels longer than that." "I've seen the footage," the detective said. "I also read your statement. You did the right thing by coming forward." Maria hesitated. "Will it matter?" The detective folded her hands. "It always matters. But justice moves slow. Vale's lawyers are already making noise. They'll try to bury this under paperwork and money." "I figured," Maria said softly. The detective's tone softened. "Still, you've given us enough to open a full investigation. If he's been violent before, and I'm betting he has, we'll find it." Maria's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. "He'll come after me again." "Then we'll make sure he can't," the detective said. "I'll put protection in place until we finish this." Maria looked up. "Thank you." When she left the station, the afternoon sun was low and golden. She walked toward the bus stop, clutching the detective's card like it was armor. Across the street, a man in a grey car lowered his window. A camera flashed, then another. Reporters were already waiting. "Maria, over here," one of them shouted. "Did Ethan Vale really hit you? Are you pressing charges?" She froze for a moment, heart racing. A woman reporter stepped forward. "Do you think you'll win against him?" Maria found her voice quiet but clear. "It's not about winning, it's about telling the truth." Flashbulbs popped again. She turned and boarded the bus, leaving the chaos behind. When she returned to the garage, Logan was waiting near the door, arms crossed. "How'd it go?" he asked. "She believed me," Maria said. "They're opening an investigation." "That's good," he said. "Is it?" she asked. "Because now he has nothing left to lose." Logan looked toward the street. Maybe that's when men like him finally fall, when there's nowhere left to hide. Ria came in, holding a tablet. "You're not gonna believe this," she said. "They just arrested one of his security guys. The one from the video, he's talking." Maria blinked. "Talking?" "Yeah," Ria said. "Admitted Vale's done this before. Threats, hush money, all of it." Maria sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "So, people knew?" "People always know," Ria said. "They just look away." Logan said, "Not anymore." That night, Maria sat outside the garage while Lila slept. The air was cool, the sky scattered with stars half hidden by city haze. Logan joined her, leaning against the railing. "You did something big today," he said. She smiled faintly. "I just told the truth." "That's not small," he said. "It's rare." Maria looked at him. "Why are you helping me so much?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I've seen what happens when no one does." She nodded slowly. "You lost someone." He didn't look at her. "My mother. She worked for a man like Vale. Thought she could endure it. Thought silence was strength. It killed her in the end." "I'm sorry," Maria said softly. He shrugged. "You can't change the past, but you can stop history from repeating." Maria's voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't feel brave," he said. "No one ever does. They just act before fear catches up." For a while they said nothing. The night was filled only with the distant hum of traffic and the slow ticking of a cooling engine. Then Logan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's starting," he said. Maria frowned. "What is?" He turned the screen toward her. A live news broadcast played. Ethan Vale, in a dark suit, stood on the steps of the courthouse. Reporters swarmed him as he spoke into the microphones. "These allegations are false," he said. "A misunderstanding blown out of proportion. I've always treated my employees with respect. This woman is trying to destroy my name for attention." Maria's stomach turned. "He's lying." "Of course he is," Logan said. "He's trying to win the crowd before the truth sinks in." The reporter on screen asked, "Mr. Vale, what about the video?" Ethan smiled smoothly. "Edited, fabricated. People will do anything for money." Maria looked away from the screen. "He's twisting everything." "That's what cowards do," Logan said. She clenched her hands. "I can't let him do this. I have to speak again, on record, publicly." He raised an eyebrow. "That's a dangerous move." "It's the only move," she said. "If I stay silent now, he wins again." He studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, then we'll make sure the world hears you." Rhea stepped out from the garage. "If you're going public, you'd better be ready. Once you speak, there's no going back." Maria looked toward the night horizon. "I'm not going back, not anymore." The weight of the truth pressed on her shoulders, heavy but steady. For the first time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like armor. And as she stood there, staring into the dark, she realized something that made her heart tighten and her resolve harden. The louder her voice became, the quieter his power would sound. Tomorrow, the world would hear her story, not as a whisper, but as a roar. The following morning began with the restless hum of the city waking up. Maria sat at a small wooden table in the garage office, staring at the half-filled cup of coffee cooling beside her. Across from her, Logan and Rhea were scrolling through their phones, reading the flood of messages pouring in from social media. Rhea looked up first. "You've got people rallying behind you," she said. "Everyone's reposting that video. Hashtags, comments, donations, the whole thing. You're trending." Maria blinked. "Trending?" Logan nodded. "It means people care. They're listening." Maria shook her head slowly. "I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted peace." Rhea leaned back against the desk. "Sometimes peace only comes after the noise." Lila entered the room, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, why are people talking about us on TV?" Maria pulled her onto her lap. "Because they saw what happened, and they want to help." "Are we the good guys?" Lila asked. Maria smiled softly. "We're the ones telling the truth. That's all that matters." Logan's phone buzzed again. He answered and listened quietly for a few seconds before hanging up. "That was Detective Alvarez," he said. "They've got new evidence, bank transfers, threats to other employees. She's confident Vale's case is falling apart." Maria's shoulders eased for the first time in days. "So this could end soon?" Logan nodded. "It's starting to." Rhea crossed her arms. "Still, don't let your guard down. Guys like him never lose quietly." Maria met her eyes. "I'm not afraid of him anymore." The garage door creaked as it opened, letting in a rush of sunlight and engine noise. Two of Logan's riders walked in carrying boxes of groceries. One of them, a tall man with kind eyes, grinned at Lila. "Hey there, little artist," he said. "Brought you some new crayons." Lila's face lit up. "Thank you." Maria stood and walked over. "You didn't have to do that," he shrugged. "Logan said the kid likes to draw, seemed important." She smiled faintly. "It is." While they unpacked, Logan stepped outside, phone in hand. Maria followed a few minutes later, finding him near his motorcycle. He was leaning against it, watching the morning light catch the chrome. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded without looking at her. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About what comes next," he said. "You've changed things, Maria, whether you realize it or not." She frowned slightly. "I didn't mean to change anything. I just couldn't let it keep happening." He finally looked at her. "That's how every movement starts." They stood in silence for a moment, the air filled with the faint sound of traffic in the distance. "Detective Alvarez wants you to make a public statement," he said finally. "On camera, official. It'll close the case faster." Maria hesitated. "I don't know if I can." "You've already done harder things," he said quietly. "You faced him when no one else would." She looked down at her hands. "It's different when the world's watching. he said. Then talk to the world like you talked to him. Tell them what he took and what he couldn't. Her gaze lifted, meeting his. And what if I break down? Then they'll see you're human, he said. That's what will make them believe you. Maria drew in a deep breath and nodded slowly. All right, I'll do it. Later that day, a small group gathered in front of the courthouse. Reporters, cameras and microphones lined the steps. Detective Alvarez stood beside Maria, offering a steady nod of reassurance. Logan and Rhea waited a few paces behind, surrounded by the low rumble of motorcycles idling at the curb. Maria stepped up to the microphones, her hands trembling slightly. The camera's red lights blinked like watchful eyes. She took one breath, then another. My name is Maria Alvarez, she began. I worked for Ethan Vale for 3 years. I cleaned his offices, his hallways, his marble floors. I saw the world he built for himself. Beautiful, expensive, untouchable. But behind all that glass there was cruelty. Her voice wavered for a moment, then steadied. He hurt me because he thought I was invisible, because people like me don't have power or money or names that make headlines. But I'm here to say we exist, and we don't deserve to be treated like we're less. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned closer. Maria continued. The night he pushed me, I thought no one would care. But my daughter, she believed someone would. She ran into the street and found strangers who listened. That's what saved us. Not power, not money, compassion. She paused, the silence thick around her. To every woman who's been silenced, to every worker afraid to speak, I see you. Don't let fear keep you quiet. Sometimes the world needs to hear you scream before it starts to listen. When she finished, the crowd stayed quiet for several seconds, then erupted into applause. Cameras whirred, microphones stretched forward, and the air buzzed with questions. Logan exhaled slowly from the steps. She did it, he said softly. Rhea nodded. And she nailed it. Maria stepped back from the microphones, tears glistening in her eyes. The detective placed a hand on her shoulder. You just made it impossible for him to hide, she said. As they walked down the courthouse steps, Lila ran up from the crowd and threw her arms around her mother's waist. You sounded brave, Mama, she said. Maria laughed softly through her tears. I just said what needed to be said. Logan approached, removing his sunglasses. You did more than that, he said. You gave people permission to stand up. Maybe, Maria said, but I couldn't have done it without you. He shook his head. You could have. You just didn't know it yet. As the crowd began to disperse, the motorcycles roared to life again, filling the street with a sound that was part thunder, part freedom. Lila covered her ears and laughed. They're so loud, she said. Logan grinned. That's the point. The world needs to hear something louder than fear. Maria smiled, her eyes soft. You really believe that, don't you? I live by it, he said. They stood there as the city moved around them, reporters packing up equipment, police cars pulling away, sunlight breaking through the last traces of cloud. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt the air in her lungs without it burning. The weight on her chest had lifted, replaced by something gentler, steadier. As they left the courthouse, Rhea clapped Logan on the shoulder. You look proud, she said. He replied quietly, I am. Maria walked ahead with Lila, their hands clasped. What happens now? Lila asked. Maria smiled. We start over. They reached the curb where Logan's bike waited. Maria turned to him. You ever get tired of riding? She asked. He laughed once. Never. The road's the only place that still feels honest. She looked at the open street stretching before them. Maybe honesty's where we all need to start. As the engines roared again, and the sun dipped low over the city, the reflection of light on chrome looked almost like wings. And for a fleeting moment, Maria thought that maybe freedom didn't always come in silence. It came roaring down the road on 2 wheels. Weeks passed and the world kept turning, but for Maria Alvarez, life finally began to feel still. The court hearings had ended. Ethan Vale had been found guilty of assault and coercion after other victims came forward, their voices joining hers. The empire of glass he'd built cracked under the weight of truth. Now Maria lived above a small bakery on the east side of the city. The apartment was modest, 2 rooms, 1 window that overlooked the street, but it was hers. In the mornings, the smell of bread and coffee drifted up through the floorboards, filling the air with quiet comfort. Lila was sitting at the small kitchen table, crayons scattered around her. "Mama," she said, holding up a drawing, "I finished it." Maria smiled, drying her hands with a towel. "Let me see." Lila handed her the paper proudly. The drawing showed a group of people standing together. Maria, Lila, Logan, Rhea, and a line of motorcycles under a blue sky. Above them, in big, uneven letters, Lila had written, "My family." Maria felt her throat tighten. "It's beautiful, mi amor," Lila grinned. "Can we give it to Mr. Logan when he visits?" Maria nodded. "I think he'd like that very much." Downstairs, the bell over the bakery door rang. The sound of engines followed soon after, familiar, steady, like thunder with purpose. Lila jumped from her chair. "It's them!" she shouted, running to the window. Maria laughed and followed her to the door. Outside, parked along the curb, was the small pack of motorcycles shining in the afternoon sun. Logan Cruz removed his helmet, his dark hair slightly windblown, his eyes calm as always. Rhea walked beside him, carrying a brown paper bag that smelled of cinnamon and coffee. "Afternoon," Logan said, smiling as Maria stepped outside. "Afternoon," she replied. "I thought you'd forgotten about us." He shook his head. "Not a chance. We were just on the road for a few days." Rhea lifted the bag. "Brought you something." "The bakery downstairs said these are the best cinnamon rolls in town. Had to test one first, though." Maria smiled. "And, were they?" Rhea grinned. "I had 3. Lila appeared beside her mother, waving her drawing. "Look what I made," she said excitedly. Logan crouched down to her level and took the paper carefully. "You made this?" he asked. She nodded proudly. "That's you, and that's your motorcycle." He studied it for a long moment, his expression softening. "You made me look a lot taller," he said, and she giggled. Maria watched them, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. For months she had lived in fear, always waiting for something to break. Now, she was learning what peace felt like. Fragile, but real. They all went inside, filling the small apartment with the smell of coffee and laughter. Rhea sat by the window, sipping from a mug. "So," she said, "how's life without millionaires and marble floors?" Maria smiled faintly. "Simpler. I clean the bakery downstairs in the mornings. Lila goes to school now. It's not much, but it's ours." Logan nodded. "That's worth more than marble." For a while, the conversation drifted easily, from road stories to new jobs, from old scars to small victories. Lila sat on the floor, humming to herself as she drew more motorcycles. When the laughter quieted, Maria turned to Logan. "What will you do now?" He looked out the window at the parked bikes. "Same as always. Ride, fix engines, help when I can." "You could stay," she said softly. He looked back at her, half smiling. "You asking me to retire?" She laughed. "Maybe just take a break from saving people." He shook his head. "Doesn't work that way. The road doesn't end. It just changes shape." Rhea stood, stretching. "We'll be heading out soon, got a few miles to cover before dark." Lila frowned. "Do you have to go?" Rhea crouched beside her. "We always come back. That's what road angels do." Lila tilted her head. "Road angels." "Yeah," Rhea said. "People who show up when you least expect them and make things a little better before they disappear again." Lila thought about that for a moment, then smiled. "Then you're my angels." Rhea looked at Logan and nodded. "She's not wrong." Maria walked them to the door. The afternoon light painted everything gold, soft and forgiving. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You changed our lives." Logan placed the drawing carefully into his jacket pocket. "We didn't change it. You did. We just showed up." She hesitated, her voice low. "You really think it's over?" He looked down the street, where the horizon shimmered with heat and dust. "For him, maybe. For you? It's just beginning." Maria smiled faintly. "That sounds like something out of a movie." He shrugged. Maybe it is, but some stories end the way they should. He reached for his helmet, then paused. You keep going, Maria. Don't let anyone ever make you small again. She nodded. I won't. He smiled once more before sliding the helmet on and straddling his motorcycle. The others followed suit, engines rumbling to life one by one. Lila stood on the step, waving both arms. Come back soon, she shouted. Logan's voice carried over the roar of the bikes. Count on it. The motorcycles rolled away, their engines blending into the heartbeat of the city. Maria watched until the sound faded into the distance. Back inside, she found Lila's drawing still sitting on the table. She looked at it for a long moment before picking it up and pinning it to the wall above their bed. Outside the window, the last light of the day slipped over the rooftops. Lila tugged on her sleeve. Mama, are they really angels? Maria smiled, looking toward the horizon where the motorcycles had disappeared. Maybe not the kind with wings, she said, but they knew how to lift people up just the same. Lila yawned. Then maybe we'll be angels too one day. Maria bent down and kissed her forehead. Maybe we already are. As the city lights began to glow outside, Maria sat by the window, her thoughts quiet and full. She could hear faint echoes of engines in the distance, like a heartbeat constant and strong. She whispered softly to herself, the world changes when someone listens to a cry that everyone else ignores. Down below, the bakery sign flickered once before glowing steady. The night settled gently around them, and for the first time in a long while the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. And somewhere on the open road under the same sky, a line of motorcycles cut through the darkness. Loud, fearless, and free. They didn't need halos. Their light was made of metal and motion, their wings of leather and courage. And to a woman and a child in a small apartment above a bakery, they would always be known as the angels of the road.